Well, this is Erev Shabbos Parshas Vayeshev. I'd like to share with you a thought. It's maybe a bit long, I hope not too long. It goes as follows. We have this week's Parsha, the story of Yosef, his brothers, his coming down to Egypt. And I'd like to explain things the way I see them, al pi pshuto shel mikra. It would seem to be that Yosef was a brilliant young man. He was 17 years old, and Rashi says that his father had taught him everything he had learned from Avraham Avinu, from Yitzchak, and from Shem Ever. Now that man, that means 70 years of learning of Yaakov Avinu was taught to a 17-year-old boy. That for him to say that he understood and knew all that at that young age, the man was totally brilliant. There's no question about it. Also, we know that this is a boy which attained certain levels of prophecy, as we know from the Ramban, that those dreams that he had were acts of prophecy, to the extent that he had felt the responsibility of facilitating the fulfillment of those prophecies, as the Ramban elaborates in this week's Parsha. Not bad for a 17-year-old young man. Brilliant scholar, young prophet, literally the spitting image of his father, the heir apparent. And then all of a sudden, he realizes that he lacks, I guess, certain social skills, and he had estranged his brothers by telling them things which, at least to them, were offensive. Even his father admonishes him for expressing himself in certain ways, which would probably have been wiser not to mention them. Obviously, this boy does not go out shepherding the flock with his brothers, rather sits with his fathers, and he is once again being primed up to learn and do all these different things. Then all of a sudden his father tells him, I want you to go and visit your brothers wherever they are. Now he knows his brothers hate him. And his father sends him, doesn't just send him. Now they were living on the mountain ridge of Hebron, where Tel Rameda is, it's up on a hill. And the pasuk says that he walked him down to the valley, Me'emek Hebron. They weren't living in an Emek. Anybody knowing about biblical topography realizes that the Emek, the valleys, are where there are floods of flood waters coming from the rain. Everybody lived on mountain ridges. It didn't live in a valley. A valley wasn't safe. He walked him all the way down, if you know the topography of Hebron, from Tel Rameda, from all the way up there in the mountain, all the way down to the Emek, which is where actually Marat HaMachpelah is. He walks him down, and he sends him off, and you always wonder, well, every time I send you, I walk you all the way down there. It looked like he was like Levaya, I'm going to escort you for a long journey. He goes, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he doesn't know what's happening, but he knows his brothers are prophetic people, very special people. They may not get along. And all of a sudden, they're putting him into a pit, and then they're sending him off to Egypt. He's not privy to their conversations. But what does he think? And by the time he turns around, he's been sold in bondage to the house of Potiphar. And one wonders what happened through his eyes, not through our eyes, which have the hindsight of reading the Bible and its commentaries. What happens in the eyes of the 17-year-old brilliant boy that his father walks him down to a long journey, sends him off to see his brothers, and all of a sudden, bingo, he's in slavery. He also realizes, his father's the great prophet. He doesn't know that his father thinks he's dead. He doesn't know that his father thinks he thinks his father knows where he is. Just as the Ramban brings that Rivka didn't tell Yitzchak about the prophecy that she had received during pregnancy, that Yaakov should be getting the brachos and Esav is going to be subservient to him, Rabbi Avot Tza'ir, because very simply she figured if Shem Ve'ever knew it, Yitzchak, which was the supreme prophet of God, definitely knows it. Why should I notify him things that he knows? And I'm sure that Yosef, the child, the grandchild, thinks the same way. I mean, my father knows where I am. So in his mind, he knows his father knows what's happening to him. His father sent him off. His brothers are all prophets, and he's being sold in bondage. What does he think? He obviously thinks that, it seems to be some kind of a family tradition in this family, that the great leaders of this religion always have a child that they send off to another culture. Think of what Avraham Avinu did because of Sarah to Ishmael. Think of what Rivka created by having Esav separated. Think about the children of Keturah that Avraham sent far flung away to Eretz Kedem. I guess he figured I'm the one's being thrown out of the house for whatever purpose, sent to some other idea. My job is not to be in the household, but to be somewhere else. My father has chosen me, and what he prepped me up for was not to be the heir apparent of monotheism, but rather to be far flung into some other reality, which at the moment looked pretty bad. And he still didn't know the key of us all, and he was wondering what's happening here. What would a young boy as brilliant as it is feel to be not being forewarned beforehand and being thrown out of the house into some mysterious role of history which he doesn't know himself? He knows his father loves him. And he obviously thinks his father has engineered this whole thing. But why didn't he tell him? What was his feelings towards his father at that stage? We'll never know. But we know one thing, that when push came to shove, and this Madame Potiphar was dancing circles around him, seducing him. And as the Gemara says in Saita, he almost succumbed to that seduction. I mean, he was, as one would use a metaphor, it was a second before midnight that he would turn into a pumpkin. And at that last second, the face of his father was reflected in the mirror. And he says, well, there's no way I'm going to do this. And literally at the last second, he held back. And the Gemara describes very graphically in Saita how his body was convulsed because he was totally he was going in another direction, and suddenly he had an abrupt stop. And how he convulsed and withstood, and he, because of that, the Yosef Tzaddik is called Tzaddik. Why do we don't say Shimon HaTzadik for the Shimon of the Shvatim? We don't say Reuven HaTzadik or Yehuda HaTzadik. Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik because he withheld and did not succumb to his desires and of passion, love, etc., or physical desires. He knew how to contain himself at that last split second because of the face of his father. He suddenly realized that he was sent off for something else. He was sent off to external cultures, to walk out of the incubator and to deal with temptations, etc., and somehow win. And spread that idea to the broader world, yes. And he suddenly finds himself a viceroy of Egypt and leading modern society, but not within the incubator of Eretz Canaan and the house of Jacob and the capital of monotheism, rather in the capital of hedonism and paganism. He was sent there. And Yaakov never went looking for him as far as he's concerned. No, you're off. You're not part of this. You're creating your own branch. Yaakov never went looking for him. He was sure his father knew where he was. Father's a big prophet. But the father, therefore, he never sent messengers. Oh, Yaakov, I'm here. Well, you're probably looking for me. No, he was sure he knew. He was sure was set aside for an unbelievable mission. To create a whole idea of values of monotheism in that weird world of hedonism, passion, and paganism called Egypt. The test was to see the face of your father, the father that threw you out without telling you, and not be angry, and not turn your back, but use that face to withhold the world of temptations. I think we can learn a lot from this, and not going into the whole father-son relationship over here, which would be an interesting conversation some other time. But yet we are also, history has thrown us out of the world of the incubator. We're not all sitting, in Eretz Chemda Tova or Chava. We're not going to live our lives totally in the yeshiva. No, we also have to go to the world of temptation and hedonism. Well, now it's December, so we can say paganism. You walk the streets and, you look at the billboards. They're not all about religion, to say the least. And sometimes you wonder, why did God throw us in this? Did he say, okay, I forget it? Or has he said, no, I really believe in you? And I've empowered you. Just look at me. See the reflection of yesteryear in the window, and you will succeed to master the world around you and actually make it a better place. And you will not succumb. It will not conquer you. Actually, you will conquer it. That's our job as students of Torah, as Bnei Keren B'Yavneh, isn't it? To walk out of our incubators and change the world around us by training ourselves and controlling ourselves, and through that the world around us. Eze Gibor, Hakovesh et Yitzro. Have a great Shabbos.